Hello and welcome. My name is Pragya and you're watching Voice News Network. Today I'm in conversation with Raji Aujla, who's the president of Wildendorf Cultural Planning and has curated an exhibit called Chashm-e Bulbul, which will present the works of a group of diverse South Asian artists at the ArtworxTO pop-up hub in Bayview Village, North York. Thank you, Raji, for joining us today.
Thank you for having me.
Raji, first of all, I have to tell you what an incredible initiative you have taken up by bringing the voices of South Asian women through this exhibit. And the best part is you're doing this through art and creativity. So what was your inspiration behind this?
Definitely our grandmothers, and just I think over COVID, sitting at home and getting to know your identity and having conversations with family in very deep, meaningful ways. I wanted to try to explore what our grandmothers' lives were like, because we don't really see that in the media. We don't see that in a lot of the films and books we read. So I thought it'd be interesting to do this with a sangat of artists, not just myself.
So what kind of artwork or what kind of artist we can expect to see in this exhibit?
Everything. Well, I think so much of the way our grandmothers and mothers told stories is through songs and, boliyan and things like that. And then they also told stories, I think, through textile, the clothing we wear, but also fulkaris and I wanted to tell stories through that medium. But then we also have visual art, paintings and film and music. And so it is kind of cross-discipline.
So I was reading about Chashm-e Bulbul and I came across something very interesting and I want to read it to you. It says that the exhibit aims to probe Sikh grandmothers' missing narratives from predominantly male recorded historical texts. Tell me more about it.
Well, I think in a lot of the books I was reading, it's a very male-dominated history in general. I think not just in Sikh religion, but generally speaking, when we look at histories and we look at who is writing the books, it's all from the perspective of a man. So I couldn't help but wonder what it would be like if we were to, again, get the stories of our grandmothers, but from other spaces. And I think for women in general, especially South Asian women, so much of the focus is on the boys and on patriarchy and how men influence society. I really was interested more of like how hardworking our mothers are and our daughters. I feel like we don't point to how amazing they are enough. And so I thought through art it could be a very interesting thing to think about.
And this Chashm-e Bulbul is a part of ArtworxTO, which is run by the City of Toronto. So how was your experience like when you took this idea to the City of Toronto?
It was lengthy. I mean, I've been working on this for about 1.5 years now. So last year, the City of Toronto knew that this was something they were going to do. And of course, with COVID, there was a lot of delays. But they put out a call for proposals. And at that time, I put together a very vague proposal of what I wanted to do. I knew I wanted to focus on Sikh narratives because that's the only narrative I know. And I wanted to also think about who I wanted to work with, like Jagdeep Raina, who's this incredible artist. And so when I put the proposal in, I didn't know I was going to be selected. In fact, I put it together in maybe 3 hours, and it was like a 50-page proposal. And then I was away at a cottage and I got the email saying that you were selected, and I was beyond thrilled because we looked into the history and they've never actually had they've never had a Sikh curator before. And so that alone, I said, even those stories are missing from Canada. How do I tell stories of this religion and the people of this religion through art? And so, having Sikh artists specifically was a key focus. And so it was a very lengthy process. But working with the city it's very slow. It's very interesting. It's almost like, I'll give you an example. Didactics, that's what you have, like the written text close to the artwork, so you can understand what you're looking at. And I was like, I want that in Punjabi too. And, there's this back and forth, like, you can't do that. That's like going to cost more. And I was like, well, what's the point of putting this exhibition together if our grandmothers can't read it? And so these were little nuanced challenges, but thankfully I found a good partner. They were really respectful, and we ended up making it exactly the way I wanted it. So, yeah.
That's amazing. So I want to talk more about this. I was going through different sections that you have in your exhibit, like something called Chamba, which showcases furniture and artifacts from 70s to 90s era. Then you have something called Fulkari, and then you have a thing called Mother, which according to me, when I read about it, it's an ode from your side to the Sikh mothers, immigrant mothers, right? So it's an interesting lineup, and I'm sure, like, this is so well researched. I am sure you would have taken a lot of time in curating. But how was the experience like meeting these artists and getting in touch with them and making sure that they come on board?
That was the best part, 100%. I mean, you're right. Researching was very grueling, very long, informative. I learned a lot through conversations like this, because you could read about books, like about these things in books, but not about the women. So you'd read from the male perspective, and then you're like, okay, this is how men write about, the partition. I wonder what it would have been like for women. So that was a lot of thinking and talking with people. But the fun part came when I started selecting the artist. And interestingly, from Kirat Kaur, who I didn't know, we were Instagram friends or whatever, but every person I spoke to in this lineup, I said, this is the intention. And I really want to focus on female representation. And everyone was like, oh my God, I'm thinking about this. I've been thinking about it for the last year, or I'm making work already about this. So it was magical that I only knew 2 people in this mix of the 7 artists. I knew 2 of them. All of the other ones were like, oh, we're talking about the same thing. So it was an easy yes, thankfully. And I feel like very privileged as a curator that they all said yes, because the final show, it almost seems like we've all been working on it together, but that wasn't the case. We were working on it separately from different parts of the country, but because our heart was in the right place and in the same place, I felt like we got to do this together,
Yeah, I get it. So, Raji, you talk about women, and you do so much, and you are doing through Chashm-e Bulbul to bring different voices and opinions together, especially, from our community. But things here in Canada are still better for women in comparison to back home, But do you think that still there's a lot needs to be done when it comes to voicing out our opinion as women, when it comes to cultural barriers? And sometimes people, club religion and culture together, and women are expected to, be little, reserved to themselves. So what do you think about that?
I think we're super behind, personally. And I also respect that there are families that might be very progressive. So we're all on this weird spectrum. I think my parents, my mom was 17 when she came to Canada, and she was a child, and everything that her aspirations were all based on my father, and him making all the decisions as a family was really based on him. But when you think about religion and stories, and when you're talking about your ancestors, you hear all of that from the moms. And so I feel our moms work double time, because they're like the cooks. They have to clean, they have to organize everything. They're also working, but they don't get the acknowledgement of how much work they do. I think, right now what I've been seeing a lot in my life is how land is passed down to the boys, not to the women. And I don't understand that, not because I'm like, oh, I want equal rights to this land. I have my own, I'm independent, I feel good. But, in our home, like all the land is owned by my dad, despite the fact that my mom is an equal shareholder, an equal contributor to have worked that. And I could talk to my dad about it for hours, and there's no resolve, because he's like, this is how it's always been. And I said, why do we have to accept that? And so I think that there's a lot of work that needs to be done. And, today even I was talking, somebody on Instagram messaged me saying, Raji, like, I love this work. I'm a Sikh woman from, like, I guess a different caste. And she said, like, can you please talk about this? Because I hate the caste discussion. And I was like, absolutely. We're a religion that's meant to be welcoming for all. We have to really think about areas where we can improve. And caste is one of them. Like, we shouldn't, in this day and age, we're in Canada. Like somebody asks me about my caste, I actually start laughing. I'm like, what are we in medieval India, like ancient India? So all of these things, even though they don't seem like they're related to the woman, it does relate to the woman at the end. And I think we, as Indians, outside of even religion, we have to do more to make sure women are safe and equal partners in society. So I would say there's a lot more work to be done, and I hope to keep chipping away at it in my own way.
So, Raji, before I let you go, what message you want to give to the women out there, especially from South Asian community who are new to Canada, and they have they want to venture into this industry or maybe some other creative industry? What message would you like to give to them?
Do it. Just don't think about it. I think we think about things too much. Like I wasn't going to send my proposal. I was tired. It was late. I had a lot of work to do because this is like, you have your full-time job. This is something you do in addition because it's, you don't know if you're going to get it. So I even wasn't going to do this. And now I'm like, oh my gosh, how much impact everybody got to make through this process. I'm so glad I just took the step and had the courage to. So especially women that are coming from India or Pakistan, Afghanistan, it's like your voice is important too. And only if you let yourself, I guess it's if you allow yourself to think your voice is important, that's when things start changing a little. Yeah. So much we just take it in and we're like, whatever, like it's all good. But I think we should own our voice. And yeah. And on the art side, I feel, I actually sat on the panel for City of Toronto. They had $4 million of public and private money that they were giving to artists. And I sat on the committee that decided which artist proposal was going to receive the funding and which ones weren't. There was not a single, there was, I think, maybe 2 or 3 that I remember that came from Indian artists. Oh. And I was like, and 0 from Sikh artists. So I was like, guys, just put in proposals. Like, Canada wants to hear from these minorities. Yeah. Like, make yourself heard. So. Yeah. A big, long answer to a short question, sorry.
No, I appreciate it. So thank you, Raji, for sharing your wonderful insight with us and giving your valuable time to us.
Oh, my pleasure. Thank you for having me, all of you.